Welcome to Mianus River Park. I found the Mianus River Park, the Mianus River here, and the park, it's somewhere around 300 acres, 200 acres in this part, sitting in the boundary between two municipalities, Stamford and Greenwich, with absolute awe and amazement. A few years after I got here, I couldn't believe it. I honestly couldn't believe it. Here was wilderness, because at that time there were almost very few people here, except the people that knew it well. And the paths were narrow and relatively quiet and mostly untrodden. There were bear in here, there were coyotes, there were deer, bobcat, and all kinds of birds. And it was 15 minutes from our door, and it's wild country too. And it's as beautiful as any parkland I know. So I fell in love with it, began to come all seasons, skiing in the winter, snowshoeing, because this is lovely, and mountain biking, and of course walking, and I even did some rock climbing here in the early years. And I couldn't believe that this would last, and it didn't. People began to find it, and slowly, bit by bit, it became evident that some closer management eyes were needed on the maintenance and the general sort of park upkeep than had been. I mean, there's a long history, and I'm officially supposed to be the historian of the board of this park, which I joined shortly after it was all pulled together. There's a long history of ownership of the park, some residential, there's some residential remains further up, and there's the Red Barn we just came through, all of which have a substantial history to them. But it became evident that the civil society and government at the municipal level had to get together and do something about maintenance and about park usage in general. And so the Friends of the Mianus River Park were inaugurated, and we've been going for, 5 or 6 years, I think, now. And we have a website, friendsofthemianusriverpark.org. It lays out the work that's been done in the park and what the Friends do in terms of working with the city. One of the things that we've been doing, that I've particularly been interested in doing, is during the winter, when the snow comes out, two things happen. There is a new history written every day on the surface of the snow, but fascinatingly, in the distance between the surface of the snow and the ground, there becomes a whole new living, breathing, running, fighting, loving, dwelling, mixed metropolis, if you like, of tiny, tiny animals. And you'll sometimes see a dog or a coyote perched up on the ice or on the snow, listening with ears cocked, watching and listening. And then suddenly they pounce. Well, they're listening to this metropolis going on underneath. There's this huge, complex world underneath there. And finding out a little bit more about that requires, of course, intrusive mechanics, which I don't really like to do, but it's fascinating. When you find a little hole, you follow it down. In the snow, it's much easier to do than it is in the earth. And then you've got all the other tracks. And so, for what it's worth, I've written up a couple of these, and they're on the website, Mianus River Park. And I find it a fascinating journey every year.